good morning, everybody. Good morning, Friday morning. It's Friday, May the 29th, 2020. My name's Dave McRae. It's 11:09 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes. What's going on, everybody? Hey, this is episode 62 of McRae Live. And today I want to talk about the Invisible Man. Johnny T says, internet YouTube problems? No, I just like to make you guys sweat. I like to make you guys go, where the fuck is he? What the hell? What the hell? I'm paying good money for this shit. No, I was just rearranging a couple of things. But I'm here now, and it's 11:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Although, as Johnny T, accurately points out, there may have been YouTube problems or you never know. You never know with YouTube and the way YouTube has been today. Tom Ungurian says, is this spoiler free? No, fuck it, no. Now, this is not, and like I've said on my channel many times, I'm not a movie reviewer, okay? That's not my job. YouTube's not my job. I'm not a movie reviewer. A lot of my viewers probably don't think about it, and maybe they only sort of, but if you look at my channel and you look at the way that I've sort of engineered my channel and the things that I talk about and do, I don't give movie reviews, at least certainly not in the traditional sense, as I've often said. And the primary reason for that is because I just don't care to do it. I don't have the interest in doing it. Now, that doesn't mean that I think it's dumb or that, people like Cody Leach or the guys at Wham or, Drum Dums or whatever, or whoever the movie reviewer is, take it to the bigger channels like your Chris Stuckman or your John Campia or, whoever those bigger, that doesn't mean I think it's dumb. It's just not for me. It takes a lot to do that and a lot of hard work. And when you start doing it and you create an identity around your channel that you are a movie reviewer per se, right? I know I've been lumped into the same category because it's just, it can be a matter of semantics at the same time too. I talk about movies, so he's a movie reviewer, right? But the reason why I don't do it is because A, I don't have the interest, and B, I don't want to set unrealistic expectations, right? If I start reviewing movies, then people are going to expect me to review movies. And then when any movie comes out, they want to know my thoughts on it. And I really don't, although I'm a movie guy, the vast majority of movies that come out, I really have no interest in seeing. I really don't. It takes a lot to get me to go to the theater. And if I start, reviewing every movie or talking about every movie that comes out, then there's an expectation that, as soon as a movie drops, I got to go see it because I got to review it for my channel. And bless those people that do it and do it well. Okay, look what Cody does on his channel. He goes hard into the paint. He's dishing out all sorts of videos and reviews and stuff, and he works so hard on that. And he's got a family, he's got a wife and kids, and the whole. It's insane. It's insane. I have no interest in doing that. So I like to have the creative control. Not that they don't have creative control, but I like to set the expectation. So for me and my channel is that I like to have more control over that expectation. So, if there's a movie that I see, that I watch, that rubs me a certain way, whether that's positively or negatively or neutrally, that's not a word. Then I can talk about it. But there isn't an expectation that I'm necessarily going to, if you know what I mean. So if there was never an Invisible Man video on my channel, nobody would be like, where the fuck is McRae's Invisible Man review? Because there wasn't an expectation that I was going to do that. So that's kind of how I operate. in terms of this channel, I'm more of like a movie commentator. You know, I think of topics I want to talk about, right? I think of topics I want to talk about, you know, whether it's from the business side of film, whether it's, you know, whatever. And I, you know, I talk about it, right? And if it just so happens that I watch a movie that I'm like, oh, dude, I want to talk about that for whatever reason, positively or negatively, or neutrally, then I can. So, yeah, The Invisible Man. So, again, this is not a formal movie review. I'm not going to dive deep into and go in order and you know, I just want to give my first impression thoughts on this because it is a movie that came out a couple of months ago now. And of course, it was sidelined. It was in theaters for, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks. And then it went to streaming because of the whole COVID-19 fiasco. And I believe it's made worldwide. I think it's made about 125, 126, something like that, $1 million. It may have made a little more had it remained in theaters. I think it was about a $7 or $8 million budget. Double that for marketing. You know, you're looking at probably about, I'd say maybe once it's all said and done, 25, 30 mil, probably somewhere in there. It certainly is profitable. I mean, it's made back its budget and then some, and it's done well. So I didn't get to the theater to see it when it came out, and I didn't want to spend $20 to rent it because I was like, I don't want to spend $20 to rent it. You know what I mean? So I waited. So I waited a bit, and sure enough, the price came down. I'm like, great. I'll rent it. So I rented it and I watched it last night. And these are my first impression thoughts. So, again, first impressions, right? My thoughts may change when I watch the movie again. My thoughts may evolve. You know, we are allowed to change our mind and thoughts. That's one thing I love. And when I say love, I mean that in a tongue firmly planted in cheek. That's one thing I love or find fascinating about the world of fandom. And it's not just in fandom, but it's like you're not allowed to change your mind. You know what I mean? But you said, yeah, but when new information comes down the pipe, you know, when there's new information or when there's, you know, I've watched it again or I've been able to assess it from a different point of view, you know, now this is, see, you were wrong. And it's like, no, that's not how the world, that's not how the world works. And you see that a lot in fandom when you make predictions or when you assess a situation based on the information you currently have at hand. And your assessment or your prediction is based on that information. But when new information comes to light and you reassess, I mean, that's almost like what, you know, you do in science, you know? And so I just find that part of the world of fandom funny. But anyway, so my first impression thoughts are, I like this movie. I liked it. I don't know if I love it. And I'm trying to sort of let things digest because The Invisible Man is a really well-made thriller. It's very well done. It's very well done. It's fun. It's fun to watch. I enjoyed a lot of the sequences. I enjoyed a lot of the creative decisions that Leigh Whannell, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, made in terms of his directing style, where to place the camera, you know, the utilization of that negative space, really drawing your attention, you know, psychologically creating the illusion, reminding the audience that he could be there even though he may not be there. One of my favorite moments in the movie is when Elizabeth Moss's character, Cecilia, I think that's her name, right? She was in the bedroom of her friend's place, right? You know, the cop, and she's hanging clothes and she's going to the other side of the room, and then she comes back and she's got a shirt in her hand, and then she just stops and she looks behind her and she's just looking at this empty space. I love that. I love that kind of thing. Really well done. Great work. But The Invisible Man is a movie that, again, this is first impression, that I felt like it hit a bar, it hit a level, and then just kind of stayed there. Now, there were moments where it went up a notch, right? Like with the death of her sister in the in the restaurant. Oh yeah, and I guess I should have said spoiler alert. I should have said that at the beginning, but I did say it. I'm sorry. I'm just not, I'm not a movie reviewer, folks. I'm not used to going, spoilers, it's fucking, if you're watching this and you're still here, like, here's the thing I look at is that if anybody is talking about a movie that I've yet to see, I probably don't watch it. Unless there's something that says non-spoiler review or thoughts or talk. But if it doesn't say that, I generally don't watch it. Anyway, sorry about that. Spoiler review. Spoilers. So there will be spoilers in this, in case you haven't already figured that out. Because, you can't talk about a movie like this and do it justice. And I can't give my full first impression thoughts without talking about spoilers. Anyway, that was a great moment, right? That caught me by surprise. That was really, really well done. Took it up a bit. And then it leveled off and came back down and sort of stayed at that bar where it was pretty much from the moment that the guy, when Cecilia is escaping from from her place at the opening of the, at the beginning of the movie, which, by the way, was a terrific opening. It reminded me, for those of you that are old enough to remember, it reminded me of Julia Roberts' Sleeping with the Enemy, which was an early 90s movie. If you guys haven't seen that. I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I think the opening was very similar. Anyway, great opening, great slow burn, great suspense, right? You know what this movie's about. You know what she's doing. And even if you didn't, you get that impression by just how long that opening is. I mean, it's about 7-10 minutes before she even gets to her friend or to her sister out on the street. So that whole sequence there where even if you don't know that she's in a toxic, abusive relationship and you have no idea what this is about or why she's doing this, it's very evident, 3 or 4 minutes into her slowly getting up and, tiptoeing around. And it's very evident that she doesn't want to wake this man. And she's very scared of this man for whatever reason, if you were unbeknownst to the, why she was leaving. And then, of course, you can kind of put two and two together. And why would a woman leave under circumstances like that? She's obviously being abused somehow, physically, emotionally, sexually, all of the above. Who knows, right? So she's terrified of this man. And it was a great opening. It was a great opening. And now this is, again, just first impressions. And there's nothing wrong with the way they did it. There's nothing wrong with the way they did it. So you could perceive this as a nitpick. But I think I was so engrossed in the first 10 minutes of the movie that I expected this to happen. And there was a bit of and then it happened. And it kind of took me out of it. It was a bit of I had time to breathe. And I think that moment where they let me breathe affected me. And this is what I'm talking about. So the opening of the movie, right? Everything I've said, great. She gets out to the road. She's waiting for her sister. Of course, we don't know it's her sister at the time. She's waiting. Now, I'm thinking, okay, so she's called a friend. A friend is supposed to meet her there at a certain time. And the friend knows all about this. I was, for some reason, under that impression that, like, the friend knows that her friend is in an abusive relationship. Okay, oh my God, you're doing it. This is it. I'll be there, baby. I'll be there. Anyway. So the car shows up, right? And she gets in the car, drops the pill bottle on the ground, whatever. She gets in the car and she's like, just go. And at first, now I'm thinking this is her friend, right? Her friend is like, what's going on, Cecilia? What's happening? What's going on? There was something about that took me out of it just a little bit. Now, there's nothing wrong with the way they did it because it's perfectly explained. There's a lot of women and men, but mostly, women that are in abusive relationships and it's hidden. They don't divulge certain information to their friends. Even their best friend may not know. Their sister, their family may not know. They might suspect something, but they don't. There's nothing wrong with what Leigh Whannell did, how he wrote that. But I think the opening was so strong that there's certain moments that it took me, just kind of, it gave me room to breathe. I maybe would have had her know what's going on. Like, you know, she gets in and she's like, just go. Okay. Like she already knows or something. Like the urgency is heightened for her too, which just heightens everything even more. Then we see the boyfriend, right? Emerging from the darkness. You guys love when I say that. Or maybe you're annoyed by it. Emerging from the, which was great, right? Great stuff. He's out of focus, comes to the car. And he starts banging on the car. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this. The atmosphere was great. The tension was great. The slow burn in the first 10 minutes was great. But he comes to, and I think I was, because of the level of, like, if you have to do that, if you live in that kind of a house with this kind of a man, that you are so petrified. And again, this is, I can totally understand why people could perceive this as nitpicking. I really do. But if you are that petrified, where you gotta do this in the middle of the night, you've planned it all out. You got your bag. You got this. You got that. You got the security camera turning on the phone and shit. You're going down the basement, turn all the security. Guys, this tension. You kick the dog bowl. Oh my God! Fucking the whole tension. It's a great opening, right? Like, who the fuck is this guy? Holy shit! Her life is in mortal danger, and that still resonates when he comes out and he starts banging on the. I get it, but for some reason, because the opening was so strong, I expected him to show almost like he comes up, he starts banging on the door. He's like, Cecilia, what are you doing? He's banging. And then he smashes through. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I keep saying that because I want people to understand. I'm not saying there's really anything wrong with the way they did it, but for some reason, when he came out of the forest like that, I mean, I'm expecting this guy to be pissed, which he was. And for some reason, when he came up to the car, I expected just a punch right through the glass immediately. Now, maybe that might seem funny to some. I don't know. That moment where he was just banging, like, what are you doing? Get out of the car. For some reason, it just gave me a moment to breathe. A moment to breathe because she was protected. And he's banging and he can't get to her. And then he smashes and it's like, oh shit, right? I don't know. It was just, I expected him to, the way he was coming up and just come to the car and just smash right through. Like, you're not, like, he doesn't give a shit. He's not banging up. He's fucked smash right through right away. Maybe I would have done that. And I can imagine that level of like, oh, like he's coming right out, he's not banging on any, even though it's only for like 5 seconds, and then he smashes through. There's nothing wrong with the way they did it. But I don't know. For some reason, I was so locked in and glued in that when I saw him coming, I was expecting just a dun, 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 smash, and I would have been like, oh, fuck. I don't know, From that moment on, and it was great the way they did it. There was nothing wrong with the way they did it. But from that moment on, I think for me, the movie just stayed here. You know what I mean? And it was a good movie. But I think it was a good movie that for me could have been great with a few adjustments. That's not necessarily one. But it leveled off. And what they gave you was really good, but with a little more sugar, it could have been fantastic. So another thing that I sort of had an issue with, when I say issue, I say this very lightly because it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's good. It's good. It's a good movie. It's really good. It's fun. Creepy. Great moments. Yeah. Stuff that I like. You know me. But I wasn't crazy, and I forget the actor's name now, but there was some of the acting was a little suspect to me. When I say suspect, I didn't believe some of it. Now, Elizabeth Moss was fantastic. She was terrific. She was great. Let's put her over here. Her acting, I believed her. Her cop friend, I found a little stiff. Just some of the delivery of his lines I found a little stiff, and I just didn't quite believe that he was fine when we're introduced to him, but then when shit kind of started to hit the fan, and I don't know, I didn't really find that he was a little stiff to me. The sister I found the same way. I didn't feel any really, of course, that is sort of made up when they're having dinner or when they're about to have something to eat. She does say, your strength gives me courage when I'm feeling vulnerable and scared, and it scares me when I'm feeling okay, or something to that effect, right? So I guess her sister is more maybe not as a warmer person per se, so maybe that works. But her sister, yeah, that relationship felt weird. I didn't like the line when she came into the house and said, "Nice to see you too, sis." It read to me as a way of, hey, we need to establish to the audience that these two are sisters, so I'll just say that. Like, how often do you say that? You know what I mean? I think there's a better way of doing it. Like maybe, just instead of saying something like that, I think there's a better way of establishing that they're sisters. So that kind of threw me. I don't know. There was just some of the acting from some of the supporting characters that I didn't find very strong. And primarily the cop friend I found, like when he comes around the corner and he sees his daughter lying on the ground kind of beaten, he's like, are you all, I don't know, I didn't find him very strong. Now again, these are my first impression thoughts, so I'm going by just my first impressions. To give you a more detailed thought on much of these first impressions, I may have to watch the movie again maybe one or two more times to really kind of, okay, this is what it is about it. You know what I mean? But there was something about his performance that I just didn't, there were moments where he was fine, but I don't know, I just didn't find him, maybe I had a hard time believing he was a police officer. Maybe that's what it was. I had a hard time believing he was a cop. I think that might have been it. It's just the way his character. I just didn't buy into his character, really. It seemed a little, I don't know, just didn't really buy into it. So the sister and him were a couple of the acting I just didn't find strong. But Elizabeth Moss was strong. And love all the moments that Leigh Whannell, listen, we often forget that Leigh Whannell is very good friends with, what's his face there? Wan. James Wan, the director of The Conjuring and Saw, Insidious. And of course, Leigh Whannell was in Insidious Chapter 1 and 2, I think, or 3 or 4, whatever it is. Anyway, Leigh Whannell has cut his teeth on horror in this genre for a while. And so we know that he's capable of this kind of thing. And Upgrade I thought was really good, even though it wasn't horror per se, but it was really good. Insidious Chapter 3, which he directed, I thought it was going to be a fucking shit show. It wasn't. It wasn't as good as the first Insidious. But it wasn't the disaster I thought it was going to be. I think Leigh Whannell is a good director. And this movie speaks to that. I think he understands suspense and he understands that slow burn. And especially in a movie like The Invisible Man, where depending on where you set up the camera and you draw the attention to the audience to, this space, and it was very well done. Very well done. But, again, there's just the believability in some of the scenes. How many security guards came upstairs to help her when she was being, attacked by the invisible, what, 2, 3, 4, 5, like it's 7 or 8 gunshots are going off and a blazing, and nobody, there's no alarm going off in this ward. She seems to just walk out. Nobody's watching this on security cameras. There's just things like that. And then only 2 other guards come out from there's no doctors I don't know. It just was kind of strange. But then again, you could say that, look at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, and that was a pretty desolate hospital. Yeah, but you can justify, it's a small town. I used to live in a small town that had a hospital, and when you went over there at night, that's what it looked like. It looked like that. So, this is like San Francisco, man. This is a big city, or at least the San Francisco Bay Area. I don't believe that this psychiatric ward would not. It just seemed like she got out of there a little too easy. There's just things like that I had trouble buying into. Things seemed a little convenient, you know. But everything else around it was so good and so strong that it kept you watching. And I had fun watching this movie. But I think this is a very good movie that could have been great if there were just some things that may have been adjusted. You know, some of the believability, maybe some of the acting from some of the characters. You know, and again, I understand I might be nitpicking to some, but these are my first impression thoughts. This is what I thought when I watched the movie. You know, when I'm watching the movie, this is what I'm thinking to myself. There were moments where I'm like, oh, and then moments where it just kind of sunk in and kept there again. You know, and I'm like, okay, all right, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is a good piece of cake. But fuck, it could have been a great piece of cake. You know, and you know, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite moments. Well, again, I love that Whannell took a piece out of Wann's book. Well, not necessarily a piece out of Wann's book, because Wann's not the one that, you know, established this. But I do like the slow burn aspect of the film, but also, you know, when she's in the bedroom and she's got the bed sheets and she sees, you know, the footprints and blah, but nothing happens there. She thinks something happens. She takes the sheets. Oh my God, her cop friend comes. He doesn't feel like a cop to me. He just feels like some guy, hey, what's going on? You know, comes in, he's like, okay, all right, calm down, okay. He feels like a guy pretending to be a police officer. I just don't believe that he's a police officer. You know, you stick a badge on him. I don't know. I just had trouble believing it. I don't know what it was. And his relationship with his daughter, and I don't know, it just seemed kind of, yeah. Anyway, but I do like the fact that nothing happened there. He comes in, he looks at the sheets, what's going on, blah, and then they cut away from it. So again, building that slow burn was great, and it kept me watching. There were great moments. I don't know, but I started to think about things like when she was in the stall and she stabbed her wrist and she went down like this, like she went in hard and stabbed her wrist. But yet she seemed fine after that when she was in the hall. She wasn't bleeding out anywhere. And I guess you could say, well, maybe she knew she was just trying to fake it, so she missed the vein, and she was like, okay, yeah, I guess so. But that's what I was thinking, because it looked like she went in hard and went right down like this. And I don't know. But the whole scene is great and fun to watch. That's what I found, is that it's the kind of movie where there's greatness in this movie, and then there's character decisions and performances that I find that are a little weak. Again, not weak as in it's shit. Again, the world of fandom, you know, this is it. You know, it's either a 10 out of 10 or it's shit. And it's like, get off that. Stop. Jesus fucking Christ. Just because I say, so, yeah, it was good. It was good. Ah, that means McRae hated it. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that I have standards, and I don't think everything is either a 10 out of 10 or it's shit. I would give The Invisible Man a solid like 7.5 out of 10. 100%. Maybe even push it to an 8. Maybe even push it to an 8. Oh, so you didn't like it? No, that's not. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I thought it was very well done. But there were certain things that I found it was a movie that just hit a plateau and stayed there. And then, of course, like I said, the death in the girl, the sister, that was like, oh, and I thought it was now I thought we were going to another level. And we kind of did, but we didn't. We settled sort of back in. And then there's the twist with seeing the brother-in-law under the mask. I was like, oh, was it the brother? No. And then all of a sudden she's talking to the cop who looks pretty good. There's no mention of his house or his daughter. And then all of a sudden she's dressed up and she's going over to his place. His place is perfectly fine. There's no mention of in the news of how he survived, or I guess he didn't commit suicide. I guess we're supposed to just assume that was, yeah, I guess I could fill in that blank. I guess I'm not really being fair there, but I just there's just certain things about it that I didn't I don't know. It's the believability of it. There were just acting performances that I thought were weak. The complimentary players, things that were convenient, and that's it. And I think yeah, I'm talking in circles here, but that's my first impression. Really good movie that I think could have been great. Now, when I watch it again, I might find some things that I missed, and I might settle in on some things that I'm okay with. But I think my biggest gripe, I think, out of everything that I've said would have been, and this is, I mean, I don't mean this as any disrespect to the actor, but I think a stronger performance from her cop friend would have helped this movie. I think it was, and again, I know he's not the main protagonist, but I didn't believe that he was a police officer. I just didn't. I think if he had been just a bit of a stronger character actor, I think maybe I would have bought it more. So that's kind of, I mean, those are my first impression thoughts on the movie. Love the slow burn, love the first 10 minutes of the opening. But from that moment on, it just sort of kind of stayed at a certain point, which was very good, a good piece of cake, really good piece of cake. But I guess I was expecting it to, go even higher. I was expecting it to be richer, and it wasn't. But that's fine. That's fine, right? I at the end of the day, I would recommend the movie. I think there's a lot of people in the chat room that would disagree with me. I think there's a lot of people in the chat room that think this is a fantastic fucking movie from start to finish without any issues whatsoever. I think there might be people in the I think there might be people in the chat room that maybe feel the same way as me. I'd be curious to know, though, are there people in the chat, and be honest, right? I mean, this is your opportunity to be honest. Are there people in the chat room, and we'll get to your super chats in a second, are there people in the chat room that some of the things I've said here have resonated with you? And again, I'm not saying the movie's a bad movie. I don't think it is. But are there some things that I've said that where you kind of go, yeah, I kind of felt that way too. Like it was good. It was really good, but it just kind of stayed on one wavelength, right? Did you guys kind of feel that? Did you feel that the cop was fine, but maybe a little bit of the performances were maybe a bit weak, or did you feel, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you thought it was great. The whole thing was great and it was fucking the best movie you've seen in a long time. I don't know. I'd love to know what sort of you thought of some of the things I've said here. My main issues are just the police officer, the sister, but more the cop, and I'm just trying to think back to the movie again. It's like, for example, and again, I gotta see this, and maybe I'm thinking too. I really need to suspend my disbelief and think a lot less about this, and because I do acknowledge that I might be being overly picky here, but like when she essentially destroys her cop friend's house, right? When she gets into a fight with the Invisible Man, and she's throwing paint on him, and there's paint all over the floor, and there's tables turned over and glass smashed and everything. I mean, when a little later on in the movie, when she comes back to, help her cop friend there, just before it's, revealed that I didn't see the house looked all cleaned up. Now, maybe this is because it was a month later. I don't know. Maybe she spent a month how long was she in the psychiatric ward? Well, I don't know. I mean, it would be presumed that he would come home and I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking too much about it, and I feel like I'm rambling here, which I know I am, but for me, those were just things that I thought about when I watched it. It hit a certain level and just stayed there, and I didn't think the complimentary performances were very strong. Let's see what you guys are saying. I'll get to the super chats in a second. I'm just curious if you guys sort of kind of see what I'm saying. Vanderhoff 66FU says, I pretty much Agree with you, Dave. Good movie, not great. Okay. Mark Williams says, I really love this movie, but can totally see your points here. Okay. I'm still an 8.5 for me. Weezer Edit says, I love it. 9 out of 10, but there's some stuff I agree with you. I think the cop was there for laughs. For laughs. I wouldn't say the cop was there for laughs. I don't think there was really anything he said that was funny, per se. I disagree with that. I don't think there was anything there that he said that was particularly funny. He certainly wasn't there for comedic, a comedic element. I think he was there to be that. He was a cop. He was there to be that friend that didn't believe her, right? And that eventually does, and I just didn't think he was a strong character. I thought he was a weak character. Tiffany Moses Shante says, I didn't think it was anything to write home about, Dave. I agree with most of your points. Okay, cool, interesting. And listen, folks, if you're watching this after the fact, I do understand that I'm kind of a bit all over the place here. Like I said, this isn't a formal movie review. It's my first impression thoughts. Like, how did it make me feel? What did I think? And that's what I thought. Those are the things that sort of, I thought about. And as I go along here, if anything else sort of comes into my head, I'll let you know. Oliver Mercer says, to be honest, I like the film a lot, but I can see where you're coming from, Dave, given to the small issues that you've talked about. Okay, cool. Aaron Click says, you have valid points, Dave, but I thought the performances were all good. I guess it exceeded my expectations compared to recent Universal Classic Monster reboots. Well, that's a good point there too, right? If your expectations were very low, then certainly we can see how it would be, it might exceed those expectations and you would think it would be fantastic. Edwin A. Sordo says, overrated a bit, Dave? I don't think so. I think it's a very good movie. I just think there was, I don't know I wish I could intellectualize it and contextualize it actually a bit better than I'm doing, because I realize, again, I am a bit rambling here in this show, but it's because it's fresh. It's very fresh. And now you could make the argument and say, well, if it's very fresh, you should be able to, but sometimes you need things to marinate a bit. Maybe I should have done this show, because I just watched it last night. Maybe I should have done this show maybe this time next week or something like that. Maybe I had a chance to watch it again, let things marinate a bit. But I just took the risk and wanted to jump on and give my first impression, fresh first impression thoughts. I don't think it's overrated. If anybody said it was the greatest horror movie in the history of cinema, I would think, well, then I think that, that's incredibly overrated. But I think it's a very good movie. It's well shot, well crafted, love the slow burn. That's the best part of them. The best parts of the movie are with Elizabeth Moss and the Invisible Man. That's the best parts. And then, you could make the argument and say, well, but that's what it is. That's what we come for, right? So who cares if the cop doesn't feel like a cop and he's a bit of a stooge and, who cares about that, right? We came for, Cecilia and the Invisible Man. Who fucking cares? It's like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. Josephine Bristow says, what do you think about it being a suit and not a formula? Yeah, that's interesting too. I'm okay with that, because I think that that is more likely and more realistic with technology in terms of where we're going. I think that is more probable, at least in the foreseeable future. Being a liquid in something like that is not to say that wouldn't eventually happen, but I think it's more palpable to wrap our minds around. It feels more realistic. It feels more genuine. It feels more probable that somebody could create and invent a suit that reflects light and, whatever the case is, right, to make them invisible. I think that, so I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was fine. I do like the idea of her stabbing him, affecting the suit and the light. And then, of course, he's coming in and out and in and out. I like that kind of thing, too. I thought that was good. There's something else. And again, this is a nitpick, but when she is, when she's being strangled by the throat up against the car, right? Outside in the rain after she's escaped from the hospital there, and he's talking to her. It's clearly in a studio. Now, as somebody that deals with sound all the time, as somebody that has done a lot of ADR in my life, as somebody who deals with sound mixing and mastering on a daily basis. And of course, I'm not just talking about this show, but my voiceover career. I can tell that that was recorded in a studio when he's talking to her. When she screams and goes, ah, you can tell it's in the, or now maybe it wasn't, maybe that was even ADR'd, but you can tell that it was at the very least mixed and mastered to sound like it's part of the environment, right? She's in that environment. It sounds too produced. Now, I justified it as I was watching it by saying, well, because he's in the he's in the mask, right? He's in the costume. So it's gonna sound like this, right? And I'm like, okay, it's gonna sound like that. That's kind of how I justified it in my own mind. But, these are things that I think of when I watch these types, when I watch movies, is that I hear that and I go, well, he's out in the elements. He's literally out there. It's not like he's in another dimension. He's just in the suit. So he is actually in reality, physically in the environment. You just can't see him because of the suit. But he is actually physically there. So I'm like, when he was talking to her, it should have sounded like he was there. I mean, maybe it sounds a bit different because he's got the whole fucking contraption on his face. But it's just little things like that. It's like, wow, this sounds like he's in a voiceover booth. Like it sounds like me right now. Hey, what's going on? I'm going to kill you and I'm going to get you. It sounds as rich and as crisp as this. You know what I mean? And then she's like, no. And it's kind of like, well, but again, I justified it because, he's in the contraption, the suit. But I like this movie, man. I do like this movie. And I think, you see, the good news is for all of you out there that maybe were disappointed that I didn't give it a glowing rave review, know this. Whenever I watch movies like this, where I walk away from a movie going, I really like that movie. That's a good movie. But I have certain issues with it. Like, I think you needed a stronger complementary character there. I was, kind of weak. The sister, I wasn't really kind of, you kind of plateau, but I think maybe you could have, I would, like, little things like that, right? Some of you may perceive it as hardcore nitpicking. Fair enough. But the good news is for those of you that were hoping I would love it maybe as much as you, is that I find that whenever I watch a movie like this, where for the most part, I really enjoyed the film, but I have these sort of things that resonate with me. And these are not things that I'm looking for, right? Like I don't ever sit down to watch a movie to look for things to not like or to pick on. I don't do that. I just sit and watch a movie. And I let whatever is being fed to me affect me, and however it affects me and whatever I think of and I feel. So the good news is with movies like this in the past, I generally will watch it again and be like, yeah, okay. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And I'm okay with it. It doesn't necessarily change my score of it, but it doesn't bother me. It's not one of those things where like every single fucking time you watch it, you go, why is that in there? Like peanut butter on my penis. It's like, or the Sartain twist or it's like, those are things that no matter how many fucking times you watch it, you get to that moment, you're like, fuck. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a movie like this, you're like, okay, he's a bit of a stooge cop. Maybe he's just a stooge cop that just lacks emotion. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it just things like that, so that's the good news of it. But yeah, like, I mean, it's a good movie. It's good. I don't want to say this because I don't think it's entirely accurate, but maybe the ending felt very TV movie ending, maybe. Like, it just felt kind of like he's there and she's got the end. Well, that too, right? When she puts on the suit and kills him, did she have enough time to take off the suit and then come out and go, oh my God. It felt very like, I mean, I imagine putting on a suit like that and then taking a suit off. It's just little things like that. I think about those things. I'm like, was there enough time for her to step away and take off the suit again? I don't know. I don't know. But it's got great suspense. This is a good example. This movie is a very good example of a slow burn. Not the whole movie, but the slow burn. So when you watch this movie and you see those slow burn moments, like the first opening, right? The first 10 minutes of the movie, or when she's in her room and she's got her shirt and she looks around and she thinks, all that kind of stuff, right? That is how you build suspense. That is why there's reasons why movies like this, that utilize this type of technique are often received well, because there's something to be said about putting your characters in the same position as your audience and playing with them psychologically. It will always affect an audience far more than anything you will ever show them, ever. The Invisible Dave. That's right. Let me see here. Okay, let's go over to some super chats, because some super chats did come in. Intel Wild sends a super chat and says, Dave, with the budget of $7 million, they hit it out of the park, in my opinion. They did. Well, yeah, in terms of that, for sure. Intel Wild follows up with enough mood and atmosphere for you in this, Dave. There was some great mood and atmosphere. Oh, yeah, there was some great stuff in this movie. No doubt about it. Todd Fayer sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you so much, Todd. Says, Dave, I believe if Halloween Kills comes out in the movie theaters, it will gross maybe 25 million first weekend and eventually gross maybe 99 million worldwide. Okay. I think that might be a bit low. But okay, we'll see if you're correct. TMB sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you so much, TMB, and says, Dave, I made the same connection to Sleeping with the Enemy. Very cool. I love how they built up the mystique to her ex. Yes, definitely. We don't see the abuse or violence at all. We have to trust the narrator. I love the reveal in the attic scene. I do too. Yes, I agree with you. It definitely reminded me of that early 90s Julia Roberts movie, Sleeping with the Enemy. If you guys haven't seen Sleeping with the Enemy, watch it. It was 91, somewhere around there. I believe this was post Pretty Woman, but Julia Roberts wasn't quite Julia Roberts yet, but she was still on her way. Yeah, very cool. Blood 1987 sends a super chat, says, hey, Dave, I just shart myself. Love your show. Great. It's great that you just shat yourself. Make sure you clean it up with some toilet paper. Intel Wild sends a super chat, says, it's not great, not just good, it's very good. A strong 7.5 to 8 for me. And let's face it, these days, there aren't a lot of 7.58s being produced. Well, I think there are a lot of 7.58 movies being produced that you haven't seen, but there's definitely not a lot of 7.58 horror movies being produced. That is true. That is very, very true. I will agree with that. TMB also sends in a super chat and says, the acting needed more substance, but the story was gripping to me, especially the ending. I think you articulated that very well. And I think in my long, hopefully somewhat coherent expressing of my feelings about my first impressions of this movie, you were able to sort of see that. I think that's what I was saying too. I think there needed to be more substance to the supporting characters. And I think they were just sort of a little too one-dimensional for me. Now, again, I understand that this isn't a movie. It's not the fucking Shawshank Redemption here. I mean, you're not going to spend a lot of time developing these relationships, but I just don't think the supporting cast was very strong. I really didn't care that her sister died. Now, what shocked me, what made me go, oh, was not that she died, was that she died in that way. I didn't see it coming. It could have been anybody there, and it would have been like, oh, do you know what I mean? Now, is it a little more like, oh, because it's her sister? Sure. But I agree with you. I think there was the relationships were quite cold, and I didn't feel much for the supporting cast. And I think that was a problem for me. I think if they had even just been a fraction of a bit warmer and a bit more, if the acting had just been a bit better, I think I would have been okay with it. But I agree with you. I think substance was an issue there in the relationships. like some of the acting I felt, it just seemed cliche. When she gets to the door, and she's like, so what are you doing here? So, what do you mean? Oh, so you sent that email, but I wasn't gonna, and then there's the interruption. You're not gonna, blah, 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 but I didn't, and then it's like, just feels like they're it's not bad acting, but it's just kind of like predictable, like it feels a little tropey, a little cliche. I just think there needs to be more substance, perhaps. Let me see here. Just going back, making sure I got the super chat. 1 second here. No. Make sure I got them all. I think I did. Where the hell did it go here? Okay. Billy Van sends in a super chat. You're supporting the channel. Thank you so much, Billy. Really appreciate it. Very, very much. Yeah, let me know, folks. Let me know below. What did you think of The Invisible Man? What did you think of it? And let me know in the chat room right now. Keep talking about it. This is The Invisible Man we're talking about today on this Friday. And let me know your thoughts. Let it all out. This is your opportunity. Did you love it? Is it a 10 out of 10? Do you kind of see what I'm talking about? Or are you just like, Dave, you're fucking nitpicking the shit out of this thing? Oh, I can understand why you would think that. I can understand that. Or like I said, are there certain things I've said that kind of make you go, I kind of felt that too a little bit. And, now that you mention it, the cop was kind of, you know what I mean? Maybe you guys can, because you've had more time, more than likely, to let it marinate a bit, because you probably saw it when it first came out. Maybe you guys can help me, and you guys can write in the chat there. Maybe you're like, I think I know what Dave's trying to say. Yeah, Dave, it's the substance thing, right? And I'm like, yeah, see, that's, maybe you guys can help get some of the words out for me. Because like I said, I just saw it last night. So I'm going on my feelings here and trying to figure out like, it's something, you know what I mean? But I liked it, though. I did like it. Alexander Dirksen says, not for mainstream people. Slow burn is boring for them. Where are we here? They need jump cuts and action. I hate people. I hear people often say slow burn movies are boring for them, like The Shining or Psycho. Well, I think it depends, right? I think it does depend. I think it depends in what... in what movie or property is the slow burn being utilized, right? I think there are a lot of older movies that have slow burns, because at one time that was horror, that a lot of people don't enjoy watching. And it's because they've been desensitized, or no, it's because they've been, they haven't grown up with those films. And I say this to everybody. If you're going to watch an old horror movie, whether it's Psycho or Rear Window or, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Yeah, that's a horror movie. It's not horror like today, but it was considered a horror movie, or the old Dracula or Frankenstein or The Exorcist or whatever it is. You've got to watch these movies. If you're a younger person, you've got to watch these movies within their context. You have to understand, you watch Psycho remembering, oh my God, this is 1960. This is the first North American movie that ever saw that ever had a toilet flush in it. Think about that. Psycho was the first, it might have even been the first movie, but it was certainly the first North American movie, the first American movie ever made, where you saw a toilet flush, where you heard, well, I don't know about heard, I stand corrected on that, but certainly saw a toilet flush. That gives you context of where you are in society, where you are in the world, where you are in the entertainment industry. You know what I mean? Like, you got to watch these movies within their context. And I think then you appreciate them on that level. Psycho was terrifying. Think of a movie, a modern movie that you were terrified watching, that you were like, oh, wow, fuck. That's what it was like for people watching Psycho. You might find that funny now, but that's what it was like. And there will be people 60, 70 years from now who will watch The Invisible Man and go, people were scared of this? It's so cheesy. But you got to watch it in its context. you got to think, yeah, but in 2020, you know what I mean? So, but you're right. I mean, but I think it's context. I think there are people that do appreciate slow burns today, but I do know, I understand, the principle of what you're trying to say. Reese Wilson sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Reese. Really appreciate it. Says, love The Invisible Man, but I do think Upgrade was Leigh Whannell's better effort. Okay. Also, I recently watched H78 and H2 in black and white just as an experiment, and they still actually worked really well. Very cool. I've yet to do that. There are a lot of people that want me to do that. So I've yet to do that, but I definitely will. Frank Riker sends a super chat and says, Dave, who would star in Blum's remake of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein? Shits and giggles. Oh my God. Oh, well, who would be Abbott and Costello? I mean, that's really that's good. I don't know. Let's throw it out to the chat room or to the comment section. That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Because you need a dynamic duo. Like you almost need because it would be so different because the humor is so different now. But it'd be slapsy. Like it almost leads like a David Spade, Chris Farley meet Frankenstein or something. It's almost like that kind of thing. But of course, Farley's been dead for 20-something years now. I think he died in 98 or 99 or something like that. He's been dead a long time now. Chastity Smith says, The Invisible Man with Kevin Bacon, Hollow Man, I think it was called, was pretty scary to me, especially when he seemed to turn more darkened every time he disappeared. I remember that movie. That was a cool movie back in the day. I think it was 2000 or 2001, something like that. Who is she says, maybe I should say frustrated that she died. Who is she says, I was so upset, but only because she was starting to believe Cece about Adrian. Oh, the sister. Yeah, that was a great moment because it was unexpected. That was great. That was great. That's probably one of the best moments in that movie because I don't think the audience genuinely sees that happening because there's a lot of factors that are going on that psychologically prepare the audience to not be prepared for it. And let me tell you how they do this, okay? Remember, in the car, Cecilia, we don't know who she's talking to at first, right? But we know she's talking to somebody, okay? And she says, let's meet in public. All right. When the character says that, you as an audience, even though you may not even realize that you're realizing it, okay? You are feeling, even if it's a subconscious thing, you are feeling a sense of security because she says, let's meet in public. All right. And you feel that sense of, okay, public. Yes. Okay. Now you're not consciously thinking this, but it's having that effect on you. And then she sits in a restaurant with all these people. There is a sense of security in that environment. The audience, not just the characters, but the audience also feels a sense of security in that environment, right? Even though you're not necessarily consciously thinking that. It is having that effect on you emotionally and psychologically. So when she sits down at the table and her sister shows up, you're like, oh, it's her sister. And then they begin to, and like you said, she's kind of maybe beginning to believe her, a little bit, or at least listen to what she has to say. The waiter's there. It doesn't happen right away, right? The waiter's there. There's a bit of that, kibitzing with the waiter. The waiter comes back, a bit of that kibitzing, the environment, right? Really sort of creating a sense of, normalcy, right? Like everything is okay. It's fine. And then it happens. And to create that false, that's essentially what Whannell was doing, was creating that false sense of security, which was which was fantastic, and it shocked me. As soon as she looked up and the knife is there, I was like, oh, and then just right across the throat, I was like, oh, and first of all, and again, this didn't bother me because it's a movie, but to actually be able to do that and kill the person would be, takes a lot of effort. But anyway, I was like, oh, I was sitting there watching it. My cat, is with me and I'm like, oh, my cat's like, well, kind of scared my cat. It didn't scare me. I just was like, oh, like out loud. I had a physical, verbal, out loud reaction. I was like, oh, I was like, oh, that was good. I didn't see that coming. That was really good. It was a good moment. And it should have made you angry. It was supposed to make you angry. It was supposed to piss you off. It was supposed to make you feel, no, what the fuck? It was, and it did its job. But then we settled back into sort of where we were for the movie leading up to that moment. It never felt like it reached another level. It felt like it hit there and then settled back in and we're going along again, you know? And that was something I think it should have, from that moment forward, the energy of the movie should have been, now again, I guess you could say it was she was in the psychiatric ward being held there and that whole thing. But, you know, again, I got to see the movie again, but I did like that moment. I did like that. Yeah, I thought that was good. But yeah, plateau, whoa, and then to kind of settle in a bit. And I just think that should have been keep going up. There should have been like some epic fucking conclusion at his house or something like that. I don't know. Let me see here. Did I miss any super chats? I don't think I did. No, I don't think so anyway. Let me see here. Tiffany Moses Shante says, I love Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon. Underappreciated. Yeah, it was a fun movie back then. Gary Rangel says, Dave, could it be possible for the studio to re-release Psycho on Blu-ray in colored version? Could it work? Well, anything's possible, but I don't think Psycho should be released in color. No, I don't want to watch a colorized version of Psycho. I don't want to watch it. It doesn't mean it wouldn't work, you know, but I think there is something to be said. There's a reason why it was shot in black and white, because of course, remember, this is 1960. Technicolor existed. They were releasing colored movies at that time. So he could have done that, but of course there's a number of factors why he didn't. One, of course, being that, you know, he needed the blood to look like blood and all that kind of jazz. And, but I wouldn't bother doing that. Josephine Bristow says, there's a bunch of clips of it on YouTube. You can find a color version of Psycho. Oh, is there really? Oh, that's disappointing. Well, there you go. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see. What are you guys saying about the Invisible Man here? Travis Lauderbaugh says, yeah, the creepiest scene was when the girl hears something and turns around and there's nothing there, but the look on her face is so damn creepy, it makes you feel like something is there. It was great. That was great. I really like that moment. Oh, for sure. For sure. It was, again, another one of my favorite moments in the movie. I also, yeah, I love the scene when her cop friend is leaving to go to work, right? And it's just, and he says, can you wake up, you know, my daughter, blah, blah, blah. You know the scene I'm talking about, right? When you see the Invisible Man take the knife off the counter and, you know, just before the fire on the stove. Now, what I love about that, yeah, taking the knife is great. The fire on the stove, beep, 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 beep. Oh my God. Yeah, that's all cool. That's great. It's okay, cool. It's great. It's great. But what I like about it is the creative decision to line up the shot with all this negative space on the left side of the screen. And at first it works because her friend, her cop friend, I forget his name now in the movie, is in that space. So the shot is nice. You got her on one side chopping up some stuff for her omelet or whatever the fuck she's making for breakfast. And then you have him on the other side. And then he leaves. Now the camera doesn't change, doesn't go in for a close-up of her chopping, right? It doesn't maybe track in on her. It doesn't do any of that. It just stays there. And because it's the kind of movie you're watching, and because they have alluded to this before, they've utilized that negative space a couple of times, you know, having all this space on this one side, it really draws your attention over there. Even though there's nothing over there anymore because the actor has left frame, you're still looking over there when she's going, and the camera doesn't track in over there. It's just a shot. It's just a shot. But how many of you are still watching the negative space? How many of you are still watching that space? Yo, you're watching it. You're watching it. Right? And that's great. That's real. I love that kind of stuff. That's because it's all in here. It's all in here. And that's how you get your audience. And each one of us is going to experience the uncomfortableness, for lack of a better word, the same way. Because he's not showing us anything. He's not showing us anything. So it's not like he shows us the Invisible Man and half of us go, oh, that's so creepy. And the other half is like, oh, that's kind of lame, right? Now, he eventually does later on in the movie. But anyway, so I love that. I love that. And then she gets up, walks away, and we see the knife, and that was really cool. But just keeping it there after her friend leaves frame, just keeping it there for that few moments where she's continuing to chop away, I was still watching. I was still looking over there. As a matter of fact, I was looking over there so much that I missed the first time he takes the knife off the counter because I was paying attention to this other side. I'm like, why are we like, that's brilliant. All right, Leigh, I see what you're doing, Leigh Whannell. That's nice. I like that. And I saw something out of my peripheral sort of move. And I was like, oh, and I rewound it back and watched it again. And sure enough, the knife's taken. I was like, oh, I kind of missed that. I kind of saw it, but I missed it the first time. So I love that kind of thing. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, the fire and okay, that's great. But the lead up to that was really good. Toronto Freddy says, I saw the Invisible Man, but I didn't see the Invisible. I saw the Invisible Man, but I didn't see the Invisible Man. I see what you're saying there. Let's see here. Let me go back, just make sure I'm not missing any super chats. Nope, which is always good. I definitely don't want to miss any super chats. Let me see here. Scroll down. Oliver Mercer says, that's to storytelling. You can't win over everybody, but if you can, at least they are trying to appreciate them. You must be talking about something else up there. Duke Fleet says, Dave, what are your thoughts on the OG Invisible Man from the 30s? That's a movie I have not seen. I have not seen the original Invisible Man, so that is definitely something I would love to see. I did see the, Chevy Chase one, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, directed by John Carpenter. Did see that years ago. I haven't seen it in years and years and years. And of course, I haven't read the H.G. Wells book, which is what it's based on. I think that book was written in the late 1800s or something. Was it 1800? No. I think H.G. Wells was born in the late 1800s. The book was written in the 1900s, I think. Anyway, haven't read that book. Obviously, I'm not a big reader. I am familiar with the book, though. Mr. J says, watch it in theaters. The mood and atmosphere was something I don't think I've seen or felt in a movie for a while. Interesting. You could cut the tension in the theater with a butcher knife. Cool experience. Very fascinating, Mr. J. Very fascinating. Now, Mr. J, I'm curious. How old are you? If you feel comfortable letting me know your age, I'm just curious to know how old you are. And there's a reason why I'm asking you, because I'm genuinely pleased to hear you say that. I think that's really sort of Dave McRae, Michael Stab says, born in 1897. I'm 35. Oh, okay, you're 35. Okay, so you're older than I thought you were going to be. I thought you were going to be a bit younger. So it's good to see you appreciating that. I thought you might have been a bit younger and maybe hadn't had that experience. But to your credit, you did say it's something you haven't felt in a movie for a while. So that is cool. I agree. It was great suspense, great slow burn. There's a lot to like about this movie. There is a lot to like about this movie. 100%. A lot to like about this movie. There just was those things that I talk about that I found sort of weak. There were some cliche things, some little wooden performances from some of the complimentary actors, but the other stuff was so strong that it you couldn't help but be really engaged by. You wanted to know what happened. And Elizabeth Moss's performance was so strong, light years ahead of anybody else in her in her space acting in the movie that I just, yeah, I mean, she was so strong. I wonder how the movie would have bowed if you got rid of her cop friend and you just had her staying with her sister. I did find that a little strange. Now that and again, I'm having some time to let this marinate, but I wonder maybe if she could have just stayed with her sister. It was her sister's house, and she stayed with her sister, and then we saw. I guess you needed somebody to be skeptical, and I guess the police officer. Yeah, I got to think on this more. Maybe I should have done the show next week, but anyway. There's just always things I think about. Like, what if you remove the cop, remove his daughter, which is just kind of, I guess they're just pointless characters at the end of the day. And you just focus on the sister. And you keep the relationship the same, but you just build on that, you know? And then she's got to go back to her sister's house and she's alone and she's fighting. And then maybe you have, you know, and then maybe that's when you introduce a police officer or something, you know, that's familiar with him, or I don't know. You need more time to think about that, but yeah, pretty cool stuff. Let me see here. Let me scroll back. What's going down? Let me see. Martin Henderson says, The Invisible Man is the last movie I have seen in the movie theaters. Well, that's that's probably true, since the theaters are closed. The last movie I saw in the movie theater was, I don't know if I've seen a movie in the theater this year. I think the last movie I saw in the movie theater was The Rise of Skywalker. I think that might have been it. I don't know if I've been to the theaters in 2020 yet. I wanted to go. Like, I was going to go see The Invisible Man, but then I just didn't get around to it. I wanted to see The Girl in the Window, which was supposed to be released, I think, this month, but it's being pushed now to next year, like a lot of films are. The Girl in the Window with, what's her face there? Forget her name now. Chat room will let me know. God, I'm always blanking on. But I wanted to see, that looked like a good movie, good psychological thriller. Wanted to see that one. And obviously Halloween Kills and Dune I want to see in the theater, and you know, but I don't think I've been to the theater this year, I don't think. What's going on here? Max Raid. What did Max Raid say? Where is it? I see my mods talking to Matt. Did he say something, Dave? Oh, here we are. Dave, what is the salary of a voice actor? Well, yeah, I get that's why that's well, I can actually answer this generally. It would be like saying, what's the salary of an actor, right? It depends. It depends on the level you're working at. It depends on the work that you do. You know, it depends on the contracts you sign. I mean, there are voice actors making millions of dollars a year. There are voice actors making, you know, $10,000 a year. Although usually if you're only making $10,000 a year, you're probably not doing it full time. You know what I mean? So it depends, right? I mean, it all depends on, you know, there's different levels. It depends on what you're doing. I'll just say that. Depends. A salary, the actor of a salary, it depends on the level they're working at, the contracts they sign, you know, residuals, whether you're union, non-union, whether there's many different factors. Like, I can't just say, well, the salary of a voice actor is, you know, this much, you know, because you're not paid. It's not salary based, it's contract based. So it can vary, and it can vary from year to year. I mean, what I make this year could not be the same as what I make next year, or, you know, whatever the case is, right? It varies. So yeah, no, I can understand why my mods are like, really? You're asking, like, it's kind of personal, isn't it? No, I would never disclose what my salary is. I would never do that. Or what my salary. So there I go. I'm even saying it. What my yearly earnings are. No, I would never do that. But I can certainly answer it in a general sense. You know what I mean? It all depends. All depends. Frank says, I make $100 billion. $100 billion. Frank, cut me a check, will you? Edwin A. Sordo says, hey, Mr. Dave, if you were to direct a horror film, which genre would you choose? Well, I would choose the horror genre. No, you mean what subgenre of horror? It would be like a psychological mystery thriller. It would be like that. Yeah. I really have no interest in directing a full-on slasher movie. Like, listen, if Blum was like, hey, Dave, we want you to direct a Halloween movie, like I'm going to turn that. If any of the big three, whether it was Halloween, Friday, Elm Street, I'm not going to turn that down. But certainly I have no interest in directing a slasher, blood, guts, and gore, and some new character. I'm not really passionate about that. For me, I'd like to direct a movie that was like a horror film, but in the vein of like An Invisible Man, where there's a lot of slow burn, there's a lot of tension, a lot of mood, atmosphere, suspense, a lot of, a big psychological component to it. That's what I would like to do. Let me see. Let me go back to the super chats, make sure I'm not missing any super chats. Oh, Juan Rivera sends a super chat. I must have missed that one. Let me go back and get Juan's super chat. Where is it? Here he is. Juan Rivera says, would really like Blumhouse to do a legit Wolfman horror movie. The whole universe monster should get rebooted for his generation. That would be epic. I would be down to seeing a Wolfman. Of course, there was the one they did with Anthony Hopkins and was it Benicio del Toro? Was that who was in it? From like 2010 or 11 or something like that. You know what? I totally forgot about this. I almost did a promo spot for that movie. I remember getting a audition for it to do a promo spot for that movie. I just remembered this now. And I actually didn't end up auditioning for it because the session date, the record date, I was not available because I was doing another session for something else. I just remembered that. I've had that happen a couple of times. There was also one like in like the mid 2000s. I think I was going to do a trailer for the animated film Hoodwinked. I remember that too. That came in and they were all set to book me for it, but I couldn't do it because of something else that was going on. I was booked for something else. That's happened. And I think Wolfman, I stand to be corrected, obviously, but I'd have to go back and look because I save a lot of the emails I get over the years from my agent. So I'd have to check, but I think Wolfman was one. Again, I wasn't booked for it. I had to audition for it, but I couldn't audition for it. I think so. If I'm not mistaken. Art Vandalay says, Dave, in regards to the Moss, exactly how the boss, Rick Ross, did she go on that invisible cup of tartar sauce? I like it. I like your little rhymes there. She went full on, man. She went full on. Really liked it. She went full on. Darren Sand says the man can grow a beard in about 4 minutes. Oh, Benicio del Toro had very little makeup. Man could grow. Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in a long. I saw it when it came out, but I haven't seen it in a long time. I actually didn't mind. I thought it was okay. It was fine. It wasn't great, but I thought definitely. But you see, this is how you do it. Like the Invisible Man worked because it was small. You know what I mean? It was small, $7-8 million budget. That's how I think you should approach Dracula. That's how I think you should approach The Mummy. That's how I think you should have approached The Mummy. That's how I think you should approach all the Universal classic monsters or whatever you're going to do with this dark universe. If you're going to do anything now because of the Invisible Man, they're smaller in nature, and definitely the Wolfman. Yeah, make it like that. Bring that psychological component to a lot of these stories, Now, again, I mean, there's always the risk that, the novelty wears off and, you don't do it right, or it maybe doesn't quite work as well for this character as you thought it was going to. It really works well for the Invisible Man because the whole concept of there being a man who is invisible that is trying to kill you in and of itself is psychological. So, I mean, that kind of a movie, slow burn, there, not there, suspense, it lends itself well to, hey, let's do a horror movie, The Invisible Man. It's ripe for it. It's perfect for it. Not necessarily perfect for maybe some of the others. I mean, you could do it, but The Invisible Man is the one that lends itself well to that kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So, you just kind of have to think about that. But Frank Riker sends a super chat and says, let's see here, Dave, in The Invisible Man, I was disappointed the dog was left behind. Thought it would have been cool if she took him as because he could sniff him out. Imagine an attack. Ooh. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I definitely think you could have had him. I definitely think you could have had her, I should say, take the dog. And I think you could have, that could have played into something later on, for sure. Thinking more about the movie again, her getting did she get an Uber? Was it an Uber or I guess it was a Lyft, right? A Lyft back to his place? Because at first I'm like, who's this guy picking? I thought it was just some random stranger on the street picking her up, and then he seemed really calm, and then she was like, take me here, and he's like, okay. And I was like, is this a fucking taxi? What? When did she have time to call Lyft? I'm like, what? Like, I gotta watch the movie again, but I do remember him driving her there, her going into the house, the alarm is the same. I don't know. There's a lot of convenient things in that movie. But I did like it. But again, my first impression, sometimes I like to, as incoherent as this show might be in terms of my all over I kind of like, but I didn't, I kind of may have been, hopefully people have been able to follow along. I do like doing these kinds of videos because they're the first impressions, right? What you first feel, like I just walked out of the theater. You know what I mean? Sometimes those are fun to do. Because sometimes they're the most sincere and the most raw. Sometimes when you do have time to let a movie marinate a bit and think about it a bit more, sometimes your response a few days later maybe isn't quite as authentic. You know what I mean? So sometimes these are always good to do. Sometimes these are good to do. There we go. Let me see here. Diehard Drummer 84 sends a super chat. Thank you, buddy. And says, Dave, if you could have wrote the opening to H-18, how would you write it? I think a new guard screwing up and leading to MM's escape would have been cool. H-18, how would I, the opening of the movie? I think I would have, I don't know. I got to think about it. I don't really know off the top of my head. I'm not sure. Just trying to think of the opening. With the podcasters or the journalists and the whole, I don't know. I have no idea. I would have, maybe got rid of the podcasters, focusing on Sartain. So maybe we, instead of the podcasters being there, we open up on the asylum, but we're with Sartain. And he's maybe in a meeting with a few people. So there's opportunity to disclose some exposition about Myers. Maybe one of the people is talking about Loomis and how he's dead. And then, of course, Sartain is going into a cell. Maybe instead of Michael being in the courtyard, he's in some sort of cell down some sort of, in the back of some sort of, hallway or, I don't know. It's something like that. Maybe add a bit more atmosphere and, rather than having him in broad daylight in the courtyard surrounded by a bunch of weird people. I don't know. Let me see here. Max Raid says, usually when I comment on someone who's trolling you or saying dumb shit, I defend you and get accused of being you. Yeah, Max, I remember you saying that before. Listen, there are there are people that I will always comment on my YouTube channel, whether it's comments in the comments section or in the community section. You'll know it's me because it will be me, because it will say Dave McRae. Anybody who has a bit of a following on YouTube, all right, and Max, I'm not accusing you of being this kind of guy, okay, but anybody who develops a bit of a following will soon discover that you have diehards, and you have people that comment on every video. Or if there are comments that are not in your favor, or maybe they don't agree with you in the comments section or whatever, which is, I mean, that's fine. I never remove those. I mean, if they're being like racist or, whatever, I'll get rid of those. But if somebody just doesn't agree with me, I don't get rid of that stuff. But usually you'll find that people will come to your defense, especially when you have a bit of a following, right? And there are a few people that I can think of. I think Max is one. There's another guy that likes to come to my defense as well, and will either defend me or explain what I was trying to say. Sometimes they get it right, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, that's actually not what I was trying to say, but whatever, right? And then I usually pipe in as well. But if anybody thinks that I have 4 or 5 YouTube accounts where I'm secretly, A, I've never even thought to do that. B, how exhausting is that? And C, I have absolutely no trouble and no issues with commenting on comments as myself. I have no issues doing that. No issues. So Max, yeah, I mean, if anybody thinks you're me, let them think you're me. Let them think you're me. Let them think it and whatever. I couldn't care less. But if you're somebody that is wondering if I do that, I don't do that because I have no issues commenting as myself. You will see me comment as myself. And sometimes I comment as myself on shit like that. But no, I do have another YouTube account, but it's under my name. It's under the VoiceMann, Dave McRae, and it's where I upload a lot of my work, although I haven't uploaded work in a while there. But there's that account. So I have that one. So I have this YouTube account and that YouTube account, and that's it. But yeah, don't. Who cares? Who cares? Let them think you're me. Let them think you're me. Whatever. Let me see here. Tabitha Short says, Dave, it looks like your new MM picture to your right is floating. Very cool. Oh, does it? Oh, that must. Yeah, it's actually on top of a stand. That's actually kind of funny. It's cool. It's a great picture. I love it. Shout out to Mason James, who I think was the one that sent it to me. Awesome shit, man. Love it. You rock, buddy. Let me see here. Chris Baber sends the super chat and says, howdy, biatches, to the channel. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate you supporting the channel like that, man. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Let me see here. Darren Sand says that Frank Riker, I'm starting to believe the billions of dollars joke. Earl McRae live must cost you close to $1 billion super chat. $1 billion. Yeah, Frank's amazing. Frank is not only a patron of mine, a moderator, but Frank is a big supporter of the channel, supports every show. Frank probably supports with at least $20, $25 of super chats. And Frank, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And you doing that. I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed. It does not go unappreciated. Certainly it is, it's something that I notice and that others do as well, and that you're a great supporter of the channel, and your commitment to the moderating as well is just terrific. Mr. Genre says, Halloween Kills better not pull a Halloween 5 at the beginning and not show Myers crawling through a tunnel to get out of the house. Oh, I agree. I don't think we're going to see that. Definitely don't want to see Myers in some sort of vulnerable position. You know what I mean? Aaron Ponder says, hey, Dave, an update on It's Me, Billy. Okay, so we're still in a holding pattern. Bruce and I are nearing we're in the process of renting the gear we need to shoot our little teaser. Again, the teaser's not going to be anything major. Dylan's New Nightmares teaser was more involved than ours, but we wanted to have a little something to go with the Indiegogo campaign. And I believe what we were looking at yeah, Bruce was going to, yeah, we're renting some gear from White's to do this. And, but we haven't solidified a date to shoot it yet. I've been in touch with our actresses and said when restaurants begin to open up again, because a lot of restaurants here are doing takeout now, and they have been for a while. But we're waiting for the okay where it's like, okay, restaurants can begin to open up again, but obviously under limited capacity. And I sent a text to our actors and I said, hopefully that's going to be happening very soon. And when that happens, are you guys okay? How do you feel? Are you comfortable with getting together? And everybody said yes, because we want to get to, because we've yet to meet them. We've talked to them on the phone, and you know, all that, but we've yet to actually meet them in person. So we want to get together, meet them in person, get to know them, talk to them. So we're still sort of at that stage. We are pretty almost ready to shoot that teaser. And then once things begin to, once the industry begins to open up a bit more, that's when we'll launch our campaign. So maybe in June, but it might be in July. It might be in July, but maybe in June. Maybe we'll see where the climate of, you know, the industry and society is at that time. But it's tricky. I mean, our goal was to shoot the movie in November. That is still possible, but we've lost a couple of months here, you know, of pre-production. So it may not be November. And if it isn't November, then I have to speak with everybody, you know, and I got to say, hey, you know, what's your schedule like for January or February, right? Because we may have to push it to then to shoot it. Because our original goal was to launch the campaign in April, you know, and then have the summer to do pre-production. Well, we haven't even launched the campaign yet, so we still have to go through the campaign. We might not launch pre-production till September, you know, at this point. So it's just, if we raise the money, I mean, that's another thing too, folks, is that we're going to need your help, you know, and like I said, ballpark, this movie's going to cost probably about $45,000 to make. And if we only raise $5,000, listen, we appreciate everything, but we have to be realistic, right? If we only raise $5,000 or $10,000, we can't make we can't make the movie, you know, because it's a $40,000 picture, roughly, right? So if we only raise $5,000 or $10,000, that's amazing. You guys are fucking amazing. But then we might then either decide to refund everybody, or, hey, you know what? Let's shoot a scene, or let's shoot this scene from the movie and use that as a concept piece to then hopefully maybe raise the rest of the money to shoot the rest of the movie. We may decide to do that because you can't shoot a $40,000 movie on a $5,000 budget. You just can't do that. So we're really hoping that that isn't the case, that we can raise the money we need. I mean, like any Indiegogo campaign, there are different tiers. There are going to be tiers that are very affordable to, you know, most everybody. And then of course there are higher tiers that are much more expensive. You know, so it's like any Indiegogo campaign, right? So, but we're excited about it. We really are. I mean, it's a really good script. We're assembling, a really talented crew, great cast. And we're really hoping we can raise the money to shoot this movie, because if you're a big fan of the original Black Christmas, if you are somebody that is very disappointed and upset that you got the Black Christmas you got in 2019, you may want to support this campaign, because Billy is back, and it progresses the narrative. So, you know, it is a unofficial sequel to the original film. You know, and we got some interesting things happening. So that's where we are. We're just basically in the same position as every production is. It's kind of like, well, we're working a lot behind the scenes, but we're just waiting for that gate to open and go, okay, now you can go. And it's like, okay, here we go. Start your engines. Here we go. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we are. But we are continuing to work behind the scenes, no doubt about it. Michael Dean says, Dave, I'm not sure if you ever talked about this, but would you ever bring your girlfriend on any of your friends McRae live? I've only seen Bruce in your videos. No, my girlfriend is a huge supporter of what I do. She is absolutely, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for her. And what I mean by that is, you know, a number of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, she was the one that was pushing me to do this. You know, like, you know, you got to get on there and talk about this and share your insights and your knowledge and your, you know, and just be you. And, you know, and it was, you know, she'd been wanting me to do that for quite some time. And then it was Halloween when they were making a new Halloween film. That was sort of the icing on the cake, where it was like, okay, now you have, like, come on, Dave, you gotta, you know. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing any of this. You know, because like I said many times, I've had this channel since 2006. I was one of the first people that ever have a YouTube channel. But I never really did it. Excuse me. I never really did it. I never really did anything with it. But she's more of a behind the scenes. She supports me. She thinks, oh, you guys are great. You know, she'll sometimes watch the shows and she'll read the comments and she thinks it's great. She loves it. She's a huge supporter. She absolutely supports this 100%. But she's more of a behind the scenes person. You know, she's more of a, you know, she's not in the entertainment industry. She's not, you know, she just kind of wants to do her own thing, kind of be in the background, you know, support me in what I do, but she doesn't really have any interest in coming on the channel and talking. It's not really her wheelhouse. It's not really her cup of tea. You know what I mean? It's not her area, but she totally supports it 100%. 100%. So, no. Will you see my girlfriend on the channel with me? Probably not. But if you follow me on social media, every now and then you will see her, because I do post a photo from time to time of her and I maybe enjoying, you know, the summer sun, or of course she attended the Voice Arts Awards with me. Naturally, she would support me in that. So there are photos of her and I there as well. So if you follow me on social, you'll sometimes see her. But yeah, no, that's she's more of just a kind of a behind the scenes kind of thing. You know what I mean? And sometimes there are people that are like that. Sometimes there are people that are just totally into this and want to be in front of the camera. She's more of a behind the scenes kind of girl. So, but yeah, she's awesome. She supports this 100%. Jason K says, I enjoyed this remake that stood on its own, including how a man becomes the Invisible Man. New characters set in the cell phone's fast internet era. I agree. I like this movie too. And I do like the idea that they were utilizing probable technology. Again, I don't know if we'll ever have technology to literally make someone invisible, but they have talked about this. I mean, when you dive into quantum physics and you dive into, you know, you read up on this stuff. Is it possible, not just quantum physics, but you read up on this shit. Is it possible to make someone invisible, you know, to manipulate light? And like, you read up on this, and the idea of a suit doing that, although not around now, is, like I said earlier in the show, is you could believe it. You know, I mean, it's probable. I'm not gonna say it's possible, but probable maybe? Oh no, not even probable. That means it's possible. There's a probability factor that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a probability factor that's not that much of a stretch. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting because he's not really invisible. You see, that's what's cool about this, is that he's not invisible. He hasn't made himself invisible from a physiological standpoint. He's just wearing a suit that makes him invisible, that manipulates light to make him invisible. But he himself, the physiology of him, is the exact same as it is of you and I, or of Cecilia in the room. He's just got the suit on. But anybody who puts the suit on becomes invisible. And there's something that I can wrap my head around that. It seems more possible, you know? It's cool. There's a science fiction, but a science angle to it that seems kind of cool, rather than just than it changing the physiology of someone's makeup. You know what I mean? That isn't necessarily, you know, I like this angle more. I think it's cool because it means anybody could, if you just get your hands on the suit. What does that mean? Ooh, what does that mean? It's crazy stuff. Did I miss any super chats? I don't think I did. No, Chris Baber was the last one. I believe so. Okay, cool. Cool. Let's see here. We'll go for, how long have we been going on here? We've been going on for an hour and four. Let's go another 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Another 5 minutes we'll go, and then we'll call it a day on this Friday. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are, just hanging in and having a good day. What's going on here? Why can't I? Okay, there we go. Just want to make sure I could, we were still on. We are still on. Okay, cool. Let's see. Oliver Mercer says, I have seen the scientists are working on or completed an invisibility, you mean coat? Like an invisibility cloak, maybe? Coat type thing? Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Like this kind of thing, this kind of science, like this kind of, is it possible, has been looked into, has been studied. You know, and that's what makes this suit, like, as I said, kind of like maybe one day. It's kind of cool. Chris Baber sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Chris. Says, thoughts on the Chevy Chase Invisible Man movie with Sam Neill. I didn't get here until 20 minutes ago, and someone may have already asked. Well, I actually said that I saw it years ago. I'm a big Chevy Chase fan, and I'm a big John Carpenter fan. Now, of course, we know that John Carpenter and Chevy Chase didn't get along on the set of that movie. But I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but I remember when I watched it as a kid, because I was in my early teens, I think, when I first saw it. Or maybe I was 12 or 13. Anyway, I liked it. It was fun. Like I watched it not necessarily because it was a Carpenter film. I actually watched it because I'm a big Chevy Chase fan. And there's some, it's shticky, right? It's serious, but it's not. There's a lot of comedy to it as well. It's a comedy. It's a fun sort of hokey movie. And I remember liking it as a kid. I remember thinking it was funny, and I remember thinking the concept was really kind of interesting, and loving all the, the effects of him taking off his shirt as he's, running, and then you just see his legs and his pants. And I love that kind of stuff. It's funny. It's cheesy, but it's fun. I don't think it's a great movie. It certainly didn't do very well commercially, and it didn't do very well with the critics. But I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. But then again, I haven't seen it in a long time. Bianca says, have you seen The Lodge? No, Bianca, I haven't yet, and I definitely want to see The Lodge. I've yet to see it, but I definitely want to see it. Is it on Netflix? I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. Mark Williams says, hey, Dave, what do you think of the Invisible Man soundtrack? I love the score for the kitchen attack and ending scene when Elizabeth Moss leaves the house. Yeah, it had a good score. Yes, it did. It did. I will have to pay more attention to it. Maybe I'll go to YouTube and sort of listen to the soundtrack, but I definitely liked it. I did. And here's a perfect example. On Two Dudes and Some Bullshit the other day, Tony and I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And one of the points I was making in that episode was I was talking about how, and you don't see it too much anymore, but I was talking about how one of my pet peeves in horror movies is when they end on like this real, like, cool kind of thing. And then there's like this rock music that starts during the end credits, and it takes you out of the moment. And I loathe that. I hate when movies do that. And they used to do it all the time in the late 80s, especially. Well, of course, they didn't do that with The Invisible Man, which they don't do that a lot nowadays. But imagine, to sort of make my point, imagine The Invisible Man ending where there she is and she's looking and there's that crescendo that's building the music, that's great music, and it cuts to black. And imagine then all of a sudden it's fucking bull. Imagine that. No. The Invisible Man ended the way every horror movie should end, with keeping your audience feeling what they just experienced. I want to, as an audience member, I want to leave the theater, leave my home theater, leave my house, wherever I am, leave my buddy's place, wherever, still feeling the residual effects of the movie, of the good movie I just watched. And nothing grinds my gears more than ending a good horror movie with a rock piece of music. It's awful. So The Invisible Man ended in a good way in terms of music. Yes, for sure. Reese Wilson sends in a super chat and says, you should watch Chevy Chase in the TV show Community. He's hilarious and he delivers some really good performances in some of the episodes. Yeah, I haven't seen, I mean, I know the show you're talking about, but I'm not a big fan of, I don't really watch a lot of television, to be honest with you, but I'll look at some clips. How about that? I'll look at some clips of him in Community on YouTube, because there's no doubt there are probably some. Chastity Smith says, Dave, do you think the original Halloween and the Friday the 13th, the original Halloween and Friday the 13th was made in this decade with CGI and technology? Do you think they would be as iconic, and would they have done better at the box office? No, not at all. I don't think Friday the 13th, well, I don't know. I mean, that goes on the idea that there isn't a Friday the 13th or Halloween movie made before it, right? So I just think with how one of the main probably not. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the pace in which the fandom community and the motion picture industry is moving at. We're moving at such a fast and intense pace now that there isn't that time for things to become as iconic as they did. Movies are not in the theaters as long. There isn't, it's just such a fast pace. There's movies, there's blockbusters, being released like every weekend now, and I just don't think there's that time for movies to marinate, to seep into it has to be a cultural sort of epic proportions event now to almost have any impact or any longevity. The immediacy of everything in terms of streaming and it's just not the same. It's just not the same world, for movies to have the same sort of effect they had on their audience back in the day as well. Audiences are more mature. They're smarter. They demand more. They're desensitized. They think, about certain things, for better or worse, they're thinking more intelligently. They're thinking not intelligently. It's just a different market than it was 40 years ago, So I think because of that, you release a Friday the 13th or Halloween today, I just think it would get steamrolled. I don't think it would have the same pop culture footprint that it had many years ago because there weren't movies like that. But then you could make the argument and say, well, if there wasn't a Halloween and Friday the 13th 40 years ago, that would be a very different world in terms of horror. Would we have had the same landscape and the same trajectory of horror? Because without those movies, they had such an impact on the trajectory of horror. What would horror be like today without without Friday and Halloween from 40 years ago? It's an interesting topic. It's an interesting question. I don't know. It's one that might make a good topic for a show, but I think to keep it concise for the show, because I do have to go here, just know that I think that if everything else is the same, the pace, the technology, the fandom, the community, the internet, like if everything else is the same, I think the likelihood drops significantly that those two movies would have their footprint in horror the way they did because of the way they were released. A lot of this, is really about timing is huge. Timing is really huge. You release a movie in January and because it's this type of movie and this type of thing is in demand, it's a huge success. You release it 6 months later and nobody gives a fuck about it. That's really where we are when it comes to the world of entertainment and the world of the business of movies. And it was just a lot of it is timing, and sort of feeling the landscape of the genre, of how the genre is evolving, what is in demand at that time, where the audience is. It's just a different world now. It's just a different world. So I don't really know if that would be the case. I don't know if that would be the case. Factoring in that everything else is the same. But like I said, you could make an argument for what would the world be like without those movies? What would horror be like without Elm Street, Friday, and Halloween? That might be an interesting topic. That might be an interesting topic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me on episode 62 of McRae Live. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to all the super chats. Really appreciate it so much. And thank you to my moderators, Darren Sands, Tabitha Short, Frank Riker, and Jason Nike for keeping the chat room flowing and being decent and, mature. I just, really appreciate you guys being here and keeping an eye on the chat room. It does not go unnoticed. Thanks to everybody who sent in super chats. Really appreciate the super chats, the non-super chats. Thank you for tuning in. You guys are amazing. I will be back. There's always a chance I'll be back for a standalone video over the weekend, but if not, I'll be back Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for episode 72, I think it is, of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Tony, Michael, and I are watching Evil Dead Part 2. Sam Raimi's Evil Dead Part 2. I think Raimi directed that one, right? Yeah, he did. So make sure you tune in for that, because that should be interesting. And of course, happy 41st birthday to Tony Michael today. He is 41 today. Happy birthday, buddy. I'll send you a message later on this afternoon. So yeah. And then of course, to my patrons, my level 2 and 3 patrons, tomorrow night is Saturday movie night. And then I will post which movie we're watching. Of course, you probably already know if you checked out the poll. That is to my level 2 and 3 patrons. Tomorrow night, Saturday movie night. It is, the live feed is open just to level 2 and 3 patrons. And then once the show is done, of course, it goes right up onto my channel for everybody to watch. So if you're not a patron, look for Saturday movie night to be on my channel about, 9:30, something like that tomorrow night. Check that out, or look for that, I should say. So yeah, that'll do it for me. You guys are amazing. Thanks for tuning in, and comment below and let me know your thoughts on The Invisible Man. What were your first impressions? Do you agree with some of what I said? Do you kind of see what I'm saying? Or are you like, Dave, I think you're being too hard on it, man. I think you're being too hard on it. Comment below and let me know. Remember, I liked the movie. I thought it was really good, but I want to know if you share similar thoughts or just what your thoughts are on the movie. I would love to know. So in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.